The moment I realized my mother had stolen from me, I was standing in a bridal shop with my fiancé's hand warm against my lower back. The consultant had just pulled the dress I had been dreaming about for months. Ivory silk, delicate beading along the neckline, a train that pooled like water behind me. I had saved for 2 years to afford it. When I handed over my card, the machine declined. I laughed nervously, assuming it was a glitch. I tried again. Declined. I pulled out my phone and logged into my banking app, still smiling apologetically at the consultant, still believing there had to be a simple explanation. The number on the screen made my vision blur. My wedding fund. The account I had been building since I got engaged 18 months ago was nearly empty. Over $14,000 was gone. Transferred out in amounts ranging from $200 to $1,500 over the past several months, all to an account I did not recognize. My fiancé Marcus asked if I was okay. I could not answer. I excused myself to the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the closed toilet lid with my phone in my shaking hands. I scrolled through the transaction history, watching the pattern emerge like a bruise spreading beneath skin. The transfers had started 8 months ago. They had increased in frequency over the past 3 months, and every single one was authorized by a name I knew better than my own. Patricia Simone Holloway. My mother. My name is Jenna. I'm 29 years old. I work as a paralegal at a family law firm in Columbus, Ohio. The irony of that is not lost on me. I spend my days helping attorneys prepare cases involving custody disputes, divorce proceedings, financial disclosures. I have seen the worst of what families do to each other when money and power collide. I never thought I would become one of those stories. Growing up, my mother was the center of our household. Not in the warm, nurturing way that phrase usually implies. She was the center, the way a black hole is the center of a solar system. Everything orbited around her needs, her moods, her version of events. My father left when I was 7, and she never let me forget that she had sacrificed everything to raise me alone. Sacrificed. That word came up constantly. She sacrificed her career. She sacrificed her social life. She sacrificed her chance at happiness. And every sacrifice came with an invisible invoice that I was expected to pay through gratitude, compliance, and eventually money. My younger brother Danny was different. He was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. When he dropped out of community college, she called it finding his path. When he got fired from 3 jobs in 2 years, she called it bad luck. When he moved back home at 26, she called it family sticking together. When I worked 2 jobs through college to avoid taking out loans, she called it unnecessary. When I moved into my own apartment at 22, she called it abandonment. When I got engaged to Marcus, she called it rushing into things. I learned early that my mother's love was conditional. It expanded when I did what she wanted and contracted when I did not. I spent most of my 20s trying to find the right formula, the perfect combination of obedience and independence that would finally make her proud of me. I never found it. The wedding fund was supposed to be untouchable. I had opened it specifically for this purpose, a high-yield savings account at a different bank than my regular checking. I had set up automatic transfers every payday. I had watched the balance grow with a quiet pride that felt almost sacred. What I had not done was remove my mother as an authorized user. She had been added years ago, back when I was 21, and she convinced me it was smart to have a backup person on the account in case of emergencies. I was young, I trusted her. I never thought to change it, even after our relationship became more complicated. That trust cost me $14,247. When I left the bridal shop that afternoon, I drove straight to her house. Marcus wanted to come with me, but I asked him to wait. I needed to understand what had happened before I involved anyone else. I needed to believe there was an explanation that made sense. Her house was a small ranch in a suburb on the east side of the city. The lawn needed mowing. The paint on the shutters was peeling. She had complained for years about not being able to afford repairs, about how hard it was to maintain a home on her income as a part-time receptionist at a dental office. I parked in the driveway and sat there for a moment, watching the house like it might reveal something. My hands were still shaking. My stomach felt hollow and tight at the same time. Inside, she was watching television with Danny sprawled on the couch beside her. The living room smelled like microwave popcorn and stale air. She looked up when I walked in, her expression shifting from surprise to something more guarded. "Jenna, I did not know you were coming." I stood in the doorway, not moving deeper into the room. I needed to ask her directly. I needed to hear her say it. "Mom," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Can you explain why there have been transfers from my wedding fund to another account?" She blinked. Her face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, recognition, calculation. "What are you talking about?" I showed her my phone screen. The transaction history. Her name on every authorization. She barely glanced at it before looking away. "Oh, that. I was going to tell you about that." "Tell me about what?" She sighed, the kind of sigh that suggested I was being unreasonable for asking. "Danny, give us a minute." Danny did not move. He looked at me with an expression I could not read, part curiosity, part something else. Something that looked almost like satisfaction. "Mom," I repeated. "Where is my money?" She stood up slowly, smoothing her hands down the front of her shirt. "It is not that simple, Jenna. I had expenses. The roof needed work. Danny needed help with some bills. I was gonna pay it back before you noticed." "Pay it back?" The words landed like stones. "You took over $14,000 from my wedding fund," I said. "Without asking. Without telling me." Her expression hardened. "I am your mother. I raised you. I fed you. I kept a roof over your head for 18 years. You think I do not deserve a little help when I need it?" Help. She called it help, like she had asked, like I had agreed. "That was my money," I said. "Money I saved for my wedding. You had no right to take it." She stepped closer to me then. Her eyes had that familiar glint, the one that always preceded her worst moments. The one I had learned to recognize as a child and had spent my adulthood trying to avoid. "No right?" she repeated. "I have every right. You owe me, Jenna. You have always owed me. Everything you have is because of what I did for you." I felt something shift inside me. A boundary I had never been able to articulate suddenly becoming solid and clear. "I do not owe you my wedding fund," I said. "I do not owe you anything that requires you to steal from me." The word steal hung in the air between us. Her face flushed. "How dare you?" She said it quietly at first, then louder. "How dare you come into my house and accuse me of stealing? After everything I have done for you, after everything I have sacrificed." I did not raise my voice. I did not step back. I said, "I am going to need you to return the money, Mom. All of it." She laughed. A short, sharp sound that had no humor in it. "Return it," she said. "I do not have it to return. It is spent. It is gone. And if you were any kind of daughter, you would understand that family helps family. Then I will need to involve the bank," I said. "And possibly the police." That was when she hit me. It was not a slap exactly. It was more of a shove that connected with my face. Her palm struck my cheek and jaw, her fingers catching the corner of my eye. The force of it knocked me sideways. I stumbled into the doorframe, my shoulder hitting the wood hard enough to send pain radiating down my arm. For a moment, everything went silent. I pressed my hand to my face, feeling the heat already spreading across my skin. My eye was watering. My cheek throbbed. Danny had not moved from the couch. He was watching like it was a television show he was only half interested in. My mother stood there breathing hard, her hand still raised slightly, her expression a mixture of shock and defiance. Like she could not believe she had done it, but also believed I had deserved it. "Get out," she said. Her voice was shaking now. "Get out of my house." I did not argue. I did not cry. I did not say anything at all. I walked out the front door, got into my car, and drove away with my face burning and my vision blurred by tears I refused to let fall. That night, I told Marcus everything. We sat on our apartment couch, his arm around me, my face still tender where she had struck me. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "We need to document this." I knew he was right. I had seen enough cases at the firm to know that documentation was everything. But there was a part of me that still resisted. A part that whispered, this was my mother, that families were supposed to handle things privately, that involving outsiders would make everything worse. That whisper sounded exactly like her voice. I ignored it. The next morning, I went to urgent care. The physician examined the bruising on my cheek, the slight swelling around my eye, the tenderness in my shoulder where I had hit the doorframe. She asked how the injuries occurred. I told her the truth. She documented everything clinically, without judgment. She asked if I felt safe. I said yes, because I did not live with my mother. She asked if I wanted information about resources. I took the pamphlet she offered, even though I was not sure I would use it. Before I left, I asked for a printed copy of the visit summary. She gave it to me without question. Back home, I took photographs of my face from multiple angles. The bruise had deepened overnight, spreading across my cheekbone in shades of purple and red. My eye was slightly bloodshot, where her fingers had caught it. I looked like someone who had been in a fight. I suppose I had been. I saved the photos to multiple locations. My phone, my laptop, a cloud drive Marcus and I shared. I created a folder and labeled it simply documentation. Then I added the urgent care summary, the photographs, and a written account of what had happened, dated and detailed. It felt strange to reduce my mother's violence to files and folders, but it also felt necessary. Like I was building something solid out of chaos. The calls started that afternoon. First my mother. I did not answer. She left a voicemail that I listened to once, saved, and did not respond to. Jenna, her voice said, careful and controlled. I think we both said things we did not mean yesterday. You surprised me. I reacted badly. Let us talk about this like adults. She did not apologize. She did not mention the money. She framed the entire thing as a mutual misunderstanding, something we had both contributed to equally. Then my brother called. I answered that one, partly out of curiosity. Jenna, he said without greeting. Mom is really upset. You need to come over and apologize. Apologize for what? For accusing her of stealing. For threatening to call the police. You really hurt her feelings. I felt something cold settle in my chest. She took $14,000 from my wedding fund, Danny. And then she hit me. He made a dismissive sound. She did not hit you. She was upset. You provoked her. You were sitting right there. You saw it happen. I saw you come in being aggressive and accusatory. What did you expect her to do? The conversation went nowhere. He had already decided on a version of events that protected our mother and blamed me. I ended the call without agreeing to anything. Over the next few days, the family machinery kicked into gear. Aunts and cousins I rarely spoke to suddenly had opinions about what had happened. My mother had apparently made calls of her own, spreading a version of the story that cast her as the victim and me as the ungrateful daughter who had attacked her over a simple misunderstanding. My Aunt Carol called to tell me I was being dramatic. My cousin Rachel texted to say she heard I had screamed at my mother in her own home. A family friend named Diane sent a long message about how mothers sacrifice everything and children never appreciate it. Not one of them asked about the money. Not one of them asked about the bruise on my face. I did not defend myself. I did not explain. I did not send photos or documents or detailed timelines. I had learned from my work that engaging with people who had already decided on their narrative only gave them more material to twist. Instead, I sent the same response to everyone. I am not available for conversations about this matter. The reactions to that sentence were varied. Some people got angry, some got condescending, some tried different approaches, softer manipulation, guilt trips disguised as concern. I did not engage with any of it. My phone became a constant source of pressure, buzzing with calls and messages, each one carrying the weight of expectation. You should apologize. You should forgive. You should understand. You should sacrifice. You should be the bigger person. The bigger person. That phrase kept appearing, always applied to me, never to my mother. Being the bigger person apparently meant accepting theft and violence without complaint. I stopped answering calls from family members. I stopped reading their messages beyond the first line. I let the pressure exist without responding to it. And slowly, something shifted. Not in them. In me. A week after the incident, I sat down with my bank. The meeting was scheduled in advance. I had prepared documentation, the transaction history, my records showing I had not authorized the transfers, evidence that my mother's access to the account predated our current conflict. The bank representative was a woman named Kelsey, probably close to my age, with a professional demeanor that I found comforting. She reviewed everything carefully, asking questions, taking notes. These transfers were made by an authorized user, she said eventually. Technically, they were permitted under the account structure. I understand that, I said, But I did not authorize these specific transfers. I did not know they were happening, and the person who made them has acknowledged that she took the money without my permission. Kelsey nodded slowly. There are options, but they are limited. You can file a dispute, but because she was an authorized user, the bank's liability is minimal. Your stronger path would be civil action. Civil action. Taking my mother to court. I thanked her and asked what steps I needed to take to remove my mother's access from all my accounts and to ensure she could not be added again. Kelsey walked me through the process. By the time I left the bank, my mother had been removed from every account I owned. That evening, I called the non-emergency police line. The officer who took my call was patient and thorough. He asked about the incident, the injury, the circumstances. He asked if I had documentation. I told him about the urgent care visit, the photographs, the written account. He explained that I could file a report for simple assault. He explained what that process would look like, the steps involved, the possible outcomes. He was careful to note that pressing charges was my decision, and that I could take time to think about it. I asked if filing a report would create a record, even if I did not pursue charges immediately. He said yes, the report would exist in the system, documented and dated. I want to file, I said. He took my statement over the phone, then scheduled a time for me to come in and sign it formally. When the call ended, I sat in my quiet apartment and felt the weight of what I had just done. I had reported my mother to the police. The words felt impossible and necessary at the same time. Marcus came home that night with takeout and a careful expression. He had been watching me move through this process with a mixture of support and concern. He never pushed, he never told me what to do. He asked questions and listened to answers and held me when I needed to be held. "How are you feeling?" he asked, setting the food on the counter. I considered the question honestly. "Strange," I said. "Like I am watching myself from outside my body. Like this is happening to someone else." He nodded. "That makes sense. I keep waiting for the guilt to hit," I said. "Everyone keeps telling me I should feel guilty. That I am being cruel. That family does not do this to each other." Marcus sat down across from me at the kitchen table. "What do you feel?" I thought about it. "Clear," I said finally. "I feel clear. Like I can finally see the shape of things." He reached across the table and took my hand. "The shape of things? She stole from me." I said it plainly, without heat. "She stole money I saved for our wedding. And when I confronted her, she hit me. Those are facts. They do not become less true because she is my mother." "No," he agreed. "They do not. For years I told myself that her behavior was just how she was, that I had to accept it because family accepts each other. But accepting theft and violence is not acceptance. It is enabling." Marcus squeezed my hand. "What do you want to happen now?" "I want my money back if that is possible. I want her to understand that there are consequences. And I want to stop being the person who smooths everything over so everyone else can be comfortable." He smiled slightly. "That sounds like a plan." It was. A quiet plan. A plan built on documentation and boundaries rather than confrontation and drama. The following week, I consulted with an attorney at my firm. Not one of the family law specialists, but a colleague named David who handled civil matters. He reviewed my documentation with the same professional detachment I tried to maintain. "You have a solid case for conversion," he said. "That is essentially civil theft. She took property that belonged to you without authorization and used it for her own purposes. Even though she was technically an authorized user on the account, being an authorized user gives someone access. It does not give them ownership of the funds. If you deposited the money and she withdrew it without your knowledge or consent, that is conversion." He explained the process: filing a civil lawsuit, serving her with papers, the possibility of settlement or the necessity of trial, the likelihood of recovering the money versus the cost of pursuing it. "What would you recommend?" I asked. He leaned back in his chair. "Honestly, send a demand letter first. Lay out the facts, specify the amount, give her a deadline to respond. Sometimes the threat of legal action is enough to prompt repayment. If she ignores it, then you file." I nodded. "And if she cannot pay? If the money is really gone? Then you get a judgment. A judgment can be enforced through wage garnishment, bank levies, property liens. It may take time, but it creates a legal record, and sometimes that record matters more than the money itself." I thought about that. A legal record. Documentation that would exist whether she admitted the truth or not. I would like to send the demand letter, I said. The letter went out certified mail, return receipt requested. I drafted it with David's guidance, keeping the language precise and unemotional. It stated the facts, the amount taken, the dates of the transfers, the lack of authorization. It stated the demand, full repayment within 30 days. It stated the consequence, civil action if the demand was not met. I did not mention Christmas or family gatherings. I did not mention love or obligation. I did not explain my feelings or justify my position. I simply stated what had happened and what I required. 3 days later, my mother called. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. I let that go too. Then she called Marcus, which surprised me. He did not answer either. Finally, she sent a text. One long message that I read carefully before responding. Jenna, I cannot believe you sent a lawyer letter to your own mother. This is insane. You know, I do not have that kind of money. I told you the roof needed repairs and Danny needed help. I was going to pay you back when I could. You are treating me like a criminal over a family matter. Your grandmother would be ashamed of you. I did not raise you to be this cold. If you want to destroy our relationship over money, then I guess that tells me where your priorities are. Do not expect me at your wedding. I read it twice. Then I typed back one sentence. The demand letter stands. Please respond to it through proper channels. I did not address her accusations. I did not defend my grandmother's hypothetical opinion. I did not argue about what she had raised me to be. I stayed in my lane. I stated my boundary. I ended the conversation. The week after I sent the demand letter was when the real campaign began. My mother had always been skilled at narrative control. Growing up, I watched her shape stories about our family, about my father, about her own choices, until the truth became unrecognizable. She could take any situation and spin it until she emerged as the victim, the hero, the long-suffering saint who deserved compassion and support. Now she turned that skill against me. It started with phone calls I did not answer. Then voicemails I did not return. Then text messages that escalated from pleading to angry to threatening over the course of a few days. You're making a huge mistake. I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me. Everyone knows what kind of person you really are. Do not think Marcus's family will accept you when they find out the truth about you. That last message made me pause. The truth about me. I wondered what version of the truth she was planning to spread. I found out soon enough. Marcus's mother called him on a Tuesday evening. She sounded concerned, hesitant, like she was stepping into territory she did not fully understand. Marcus, she said, I received a very strange phone call today, from a woman who said she was Jenna's mother. My stomach dropped. Marcus put the call on speaker, so I could hear. She told me that Jenna has a history of mental health problems, that she has been estranged from your family for years because of erratic behavior. She said Jenna has accused multiple family members of things that never happened, and that you should know what you are getting into before you marry her. The room felt very still. Marcus looked at me with an expression of pure disbelief. Is any of that true? His mother asked, not accusingly, but with genuine concern. Marcus answered before I could. No, Mom, none of it is true. Jenna's mother stole over $14,000 from her wedding fund. When Jenna confronted her, she hit Jenna in the face. We have medical documentation. We have sent a demand letter through an attorney. There was silence on the other end of the phone. Oh, his mother said finally. Oh, honey, I am so sorry. I did not know. That is why she called you, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. She is trying to get ahead of the story. She knows I have documentation. She knows I am not backing down. So she is trying to poison the well. Marcus's mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that made my eyes sting with unexpected tears. Jenna, she said, I believe you. And I am sorry that your own mother would do this to you. After the call ended, Marcus held me while I processed the violation. My mother had called his family. She had lied about my mental health. She had tried to sabotage my relationship with the people who would become my in-laws. This was not just about money anymore. This was about control. About making sure that even if she lost the financial battle, she would win the narrative war. I added the incident to my documentation folder. Marcus's mother sent me a text later that night. If she calls again, I will not answer. You have a family here that loves you. Do not let her take that from you. I saved that text too, for different reasons. The extended family pressure continued to mount. My mother had been busy. My cousin Rachel, who I had been close with as a teenager, sent me a long email explaining that she had heard what was happening and felt compelled to share her perspective. Jenna, she wrote, I know your mom is not perfect. None of our parents are. But she is getting older. She is struggling financially. She made a mistake. Is this really the hill you want to die on? Is money really worth more than family? She went on for 3 paragraphs about the importance of forgiveness, the transience of material things, the regret I would feel when my mother was gone and I could never repair the relationship. She did not mention the assault. I wondered if she even knew about it. I did not respond. My Uncle Frank, my mother's brother, called and left a voicemail that was less diplomatic. Jenna, I do not know what is going on with you, but you need to drop this lawsuit nonsense. Your mother is not a criminal. She is family. She helped raise you. You owe her more loyalty than this. I am disappointed in you. Disappointed. The word carried so much weight in families like mine. It was supposed to make me feel shame, reconsider my choices, rush to restore approval. Instead, I felt nothing. The word had lost its power. My grandmother, my mother's mother, did not call. She sent a card through the mail, a physical card with flowers on the front and her shaky handwriting inside. Dear Jenna, your mother tells me you are having difficulties. I pray for you every night. I hope you find peace and forgiveness in your heart. Love, Grandma. I stared at that card for a long time. My grandmother was 83 years old. She had been raised in a generation where family loyalty was absolute, where women did not challenge authority, where keeping the peace was more important than keeping the truth. She probably believed every word my mother had told her. She probably thought she was helping. I put the card in a drawer. I did not throw it away, but I did not display it either. The 30-day deadline came and went without payment. I had expected that. My mother did not have $14,000 sitting in a bank account. If she had, she probably would not have taken mine. David filed the civil complaint. My mother was served at her home by a process server, who later reported that she had refused to open the door until he explained that ignoring service would result in a default judgment. The court date was set for 2 months out. During those 2 months, the family pressure intensified. I received letters from relatives I had not spoken to in years, all variations on the same theme. How could you sue your own mother? What is wrong with you? Money is not worth destroying a family. She made mistakes, but she is still your mother. I did not respond to any of them. I saved the letters in my documentation folder, adding to the record of how my family had closed ranks around the person who had stolen from me and struck me. Danny sent a text that simply said, "You are dead to me." I blocked his number. My Aunt Carol showed up at my apartment unannounced. I did not let her in. She stood in the hallway speaking loudly about how I was breaking my mother's heart, how I was being vindictive and cruel, how I would regret this when my mother was gone and I could never make things right. I closed the door and locked it. The isolation was strange. I had never been particularly close with my extended family, but I had always assumed they would be there if I needed them. Now I understood that their presence was conditional on my compliance. As long as I played my assigned role, I was welcome. The moment I deviated, I became the enemy. Marcus became my anchor during those weeks. He did not try to fix anything. He did not offer solutions or opinions unless I asked. He simply stayed present, steady, reliable. One night, lying in bed with the lights off, he said something that stayed with me. "You know what I admire about you?" I turned toward him. "What?" "You are not trying to win. You are just trying to be honest." I thought about that for a long time after he fell asleep. He was right. I was not trying to win in the sense of defeating my mother or proving myself right. I was trying to establish reality, to create a record that reflected what had actually happened, regardless of how my family chose to rewrite it. That distinction mattered. The court date arrived in early spring. I dressed in professional clothes, the same ones I wore to work when we had important hearings. I arrived early and sat in the hallway outside the courtroom, reviewing my notes, even though I had memorized them weeks ago. My mother arrived with Danny. She looked older than I remembered, more worn down. Danny stood beside her with his arms crossed, projecting hostility like it was a shield. She did not look at me. I did not approach her. David arrived a few minutes later and walked me through what to expect. The judge would hear both sides. My mother could represent herself or hire an attorney. Based on her financial situation, David expected her to represent herself. The courtroom was smaller than the ones I was used to from work. Less formal, more functional. The judge was a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and an expression that suggested she had heard every possible variation of human conflict. David presented our case efficiently. The bank records showing the transfers, the documentation of my deposits over 2 years, the demand letter and its lack of response, the urgent care records showing my injury. The injury records prompted the judge to ask questions. She wanted to understand the timeline, the connection between the financial confrontation and the physical incident. I explained briefly without embellishment. I confronted my mother about the missing funds. She struck me. I left. I sought medical attention the following day. My mother's turn came. She did not have an attorney. She stood at the defendant's table with Danny behind her and spoke directly to the judge. "Your Honor," she said, her voice carrying that familiar blend of victimhood and righteousness. "This is a family matter that should never have come to court. My daughter and I had a disagreement. I borrowed money from her account, yes, but I always intended to pay it back. She is blowing this out of proportion because she is angry at me for other reasons." The judge looked at her steadily. "You admit to taking the funds without authorization?" "I was an authorized user on the account. I had access. Having access does not grant ownership of the funds." "Did your daughter know you were withdrawing this money?" "I was going to tell her." "But did she know at the time of the withdrawals?" My mother hesitated. "No." "And did you repay any of the money before this lawsuit was filed?" "I have not had the opportunity." The judge made a note. "What about the assault allegation?" "The plaintiff has medical documentation of injuries sustained during your confrontation." My mother's face flushed. "I did not assault her. She came into my home being aggressive and accusatory. I was defending myself. By striking her face, I pushed her away." "She is exaggerating." The judge turned to me. "Do you have anything to add?" I stood. "I have photographs taken the day after the incident, as well as the urgent care documentation." I did not touch my mother during our conversation. I asked questions and stated that I might need to involve the bank and police. She struck me in response. I offered the photographs. The judge reviewed them carefully. The proceedings continued for another 20 minutes. Danny was not allowed to testify since he had not been called as a witness, though he attempted to interrupt several times and was warned by the judge. When both sides had finished, the judge took a brief recess. We waited in silence, my mother on one side of the room, me on the other. She returned after 15 minutes. The judgment was clear. My mother was found liable for conversion. She was ordered to repay the full amount plus court costs and reasonable attorney fees. The total came to just over $16,000. The judge also noted the assault documentation in her ruling, stating that while this was a civil court and could not impose criminal penalties, the record would reflect the circumstances under which the financial confrontation had occurred. My mother's face went pale. "Your Honor," she said, "I cannot pay that amount. I do not have it." The judge's expression did not change. "Payment arrangements can be made." The judgment stands. This court is adjourned. Outside the courthouse, the spring air felt sharp and clean. David walked with me toward the parking lot, explaining the next steps for enforcing the judgment. My mother followed at a distance. Danny was beside her, speaking rapidly and gesturing toward me. I did not try to hear what they were saying. At my car, I turned and looked at her one last time. She stood 20 feet away, her expression a mix of anger and something that might have been fear. She did not say anything. I did not say anything. I got in my car and drove away. The months that followed were strange and quiet. The judgment existed, documented and official, but collecting on it was a slow process. My mother's wages were garnished. Small amounts trickled into an account each month. At that rate, it would take years to recover the full amount. But the money had stopped being the point. What mattered was the record. The documentation that proved what had happened, regardless of what my family chose to believe. The judgment that would follow my mother through any future financial transactions. The official acknowledgement that she had taken something that was not hers. My wedding happened in June. It was smaller than we had originally planned. I could not afford the dress from the bridal shop, so I found a different one at a consignment store. It was simpler, less elaborate, but it was mine, paid for with money I had earned and saved without anyone else's access. None of my family attended. My mother did not respond to the invitation I sent out of obligation. Danny had blocked me on every platform. Aunts and cousins who had called me cold and vindictive did not acknowledge the day. The people who came were the ones who mattered. Marcus's family, who had welcomed me with warmth and without conditions. Friends from work who had watched me navigate the process with quiet support. A few people from college who had known me before I became the person my family needed me to be. The ceremony was held in a park near our apartment. The weather was perfect. When I walked down the aisle toward Marcus, I felt something I had not expected. Light. Not happiness exactly. Something more fundamental. The absence of weight I had been carrying for so long, I had forgotten it was there. Marcus's mother cried during the ceremony. His father gave a toast that mentioned how proud they were to welcome me into their family. His sister had helped me get ready that morning, zipping up my dress and telling me I looked beautiful. This is what family is supposed to feel like, I thought. This is what support looks like. During the reception, Marcus's grandmother pulled me aside. She was a tiny woman with bright eyes and a gentle grip on my arm. I heard about what happened with your mother, she said quietly. I want you to know something. Family is not blood. Family is the people who show up for you, who protect you, who love you without conditions. You have that here. You have always had that here. I hugged her and cried a little. Not from sadness, from relief. Later that night, after the guests had gone and Marcus and I were alone in the hotel room we had booked, I looked at my wedding ring in the lamplight. Simple gold band. Nothing extravagant, but it represented something I had never thought I would have. A fresh start. A year later, I received a letter from my mother. It arrived without warning. A plain envelope with her return address. I almost threw it away without opening it. But something made me pause. Inside was a single page, handwritten. Jenna, I know you probably do not want to hear from me. I would not blame you if you threw this away without reading it. I have had a lot of time to think about what happened. Losing you has been the hardest thing I have ever experienced. Harder than your father leaving. Harder than any of the struggles I complained about. I told myself for a long time that you were wrong. That you were ungrateful and cruel. That you chose money over family. I told everyone who would listen that version of the story. But recently I started seeing a counselor. Not because I wanted to, but because Danny got into trouble, and the court required family sessions as part of his probation. In those sessions, the counselor asked me questions I had never let myself answer. She asked me why I felt entitled to your money. She asked me what I thought I had sacrificed that justified taking from you. She asked me if I understood the difference between love and control. I did not have good answers. I am not writing this to ask for forgiveness. I do not think I deserve it. I am writing because I want you to know that I finally understand what I did to you. Not just the money. Everything. The way I made you responsible for my happiness. The way I punished you for succeeding. The way I treated your independence as a betrayal. I hit you, Jenna. I hit my daughter because she asked me to be accountable. I will carry that for the rest of my life. I do not expect you to respond to this letter. I do not expect anything from you anymore. I just wanted you to know that somewhere, in whatever remains of my conscience, I see you clearly now. I see what I did. And I am sorry. Mom, I read the letter 3 times. Then I set it down on the kitchen table and stared out the window at the street below. I did not cry. I did not feel the rush of relief I might have expected. I felt something more complicated. A recognition that people can change, paired with an understanding that change does not erase what happened. I did not respond to the letter, not because I was punishing her, but because I had nothing to say. The chapter was closed. The documentation existed. The judgment was being paid. What she did with her own conscience was her business. I showed the letter to Marcus that evening. He read it silently, then set it down on the table. "What do you want to do with this?" he asked. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to believe her. Part of me wanted to think that counseling had opened her eyes, that she genuinely understood what she had done, that something had shifted in her heart. But I also knew my mother. I knew her skill at saying what people wanted to hear. I knew her ability to perform remorse without actually feeling it. I knew that letters written in moments of clarity could be contradicted by behavior in moments of stress. "I do not know if I believe her," I said honestly. "And I do not know if it matters." "What do you mean?" "I mean that even if she is genuinely sorry, even if she has genuinely changed, that does not undo what happened. It does not give me back the money or the time or the trust. It does not erase the bruise on my face or the months of harassment from relatives. It does not rebuild a relationship from scratch." Marcus nodded slowly. "So what are you going to do?" "Nothing," I said. "I am going to do nothing. I am going to keep living my life. If she has really changed, she will prove it over time through actions, not words. And if she has not, then this letter is just another manipulation." "That seems wise," he said. I put the letter in my documentation folder. Not because I thought I would need it legally, but because I wanted to remember that moment. The moment when my mother finally acknowledged what she had done, even if it came too late to change anything. Sometimes acknowledgement is all you get. Sometimes it is not enough. Sometimes you have to accept that and move forward anyway. People ask me sometimes if I regret taking legal action against my mother. They ask if it was worth destroying my family over money. I always correct them gently. I did not destroy my family. My mother destroyed it when she stole from me. My family destroyed it when they defended her and blamed me. I simply refused to participate in a system that required my silence and sacrifice. The money was never really the point. The point was the principle. The point was establishing that theft is theft, even when the thief is someone who raised you. The point was creating a record that would exist regardless of how many relatives called me cold or dramatic or vindictive. Documentation is powerful. Numbers do not gaslight. Court records do not rewrite themselves to protect someone's ego. I learned that boundaries are not punishments. They are information. They tell people what behavior is required to stay in relationship with you. And when people choose not to meet those requirements, that choice belongs to them. I do not spend my days angry at my mother. I do not replay our confrontation or fantasize about revenge. I live my life. I do my work. I love my husband. I am building a future that does not depend on her approval or her presence. Sometimes I feel sad about what could have been. A mother who celebrated my engagement. A family that showed up for my wedding. A relationship built on mutual respect instead of obligation and control. But mourning what could have been is not the same as wishing things were different. I made the choices I made because they were necessary. I documented what I documented because truth matters. I set boundaries because my safety and dignity were not negotiable. If you are listening to this and something in your chest feels tight, I want you to hear something clearly. You are not dramatic for wanting accountability. You are not cold for protecting yourself. You are not destroying your family by refusing to be stolen from or struck or manipulated into silence. The people who tell you to be the bigger person are usually asking you to be smaller, so they can be more comfortable. The people who tell you that family does not sue family are usually the ones who benefit from family members not having consequences. Truth does not require volume. Boundaries do not require explanation. Documentation does not require anyone else's approval. I built a case the same way I would build anything at work. Carefully, thoroughly, without drama. I let the systems do what systems do. I let the record speak for itself. And in the end, I did not win because I was louder or angrier or more vindictive than my mother. I won because I told the truth and let the truth do its work. That is not revenge. That is integrity. The last time I saw my mother was at a grocery store, about 18 months after the court case. I was in the produce section, picking out avocados, when I looked up and saw her standing near the tomatoes. She had aged more than the time warranted. Her hair was grayer. Her posture was smaller. She looked like someone who had been carrying weight she did not know how to set down. Our eyes met. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she nodded once. A small, quiet acknowledgement, not an apology, not a request, just recognition. I nodded back. She turned and walked away. I finished selecting my avocados. That was it. No confrontation, no final words, just two people who used to be family, passing through the same space without collision. I thought about that moment for days afterward. What it meant, what it did not mean. I decided it meant that some relationships end not with explosions but with distance. Not with resolution, but with separation. Not with forgiveness, but with acceptance that forgiveness may never come. And I decided that was okay. I had done what I needed to do. I had protected myself. I had documented the truth. I had built a life that did not require her approval or participation. Everything else was just grocery store encounters and passing nods. If you have made it to the end of this story, thank you for listening. I do not know what your family looks like. I do not know if you have a mother who supports you unconditionally or one who treats love like a transaction. I do not know if you have been stolen from or struck or told that your pain was dramatic. But I know this. Your experience is valid. Your boundaries are necessary. Your truth is worth documenting. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love us are the ones who hurt us most. And sometimes the bravest thing we can do is stop pretending that love and harm can coexist in the same relationship without consequence. I chose consequences. I chose documentation. I chose a future where my worth was not measured by how much I was willing to sacrifice. And sitting here now, in the home I share with my husband, in the life I built with my own two hands, I know I made the right choice. Not because it was easy, it was the hardest thing I have ever done, but because it was honest. And honesty, in the end, is the only foundation worth building on. Tell me in the comments what honesty means to you. And thank you again for being here.